Next, from Chicago, State Comptroller Leslie Munger talks about the difficulty in paying the state's bills without an approved budget come July 1st.
We ready? Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As you know, I'm new to state government, and this is my first opportunity to speak to you all from the Blue Room here in Chicago. And I have to say, I wish it were under different circumstances. But today, I stand here as the state's chief fiscal officer to make clear the urgency of resolving the budget impasse that we have in the state. If the General Assembly is unable to work with the governor to enact a balanced budget for fiscal 16 by the end of this month, nearly all payments coming from my office will stop on July 1st. There will be very real consequences for taxpayers and organizations throughout our state. And sadly, the situation will be hardest on those who are most vulnerable in our state, those who can afford it the least. As the General Assembly entered the waning days of the legislative session without a budget, I directed my staff and our legal counsel to examine what we can pay under the law in the event that we have no budget July 1st. The answer came back in no uncertain terms. Our Constitution is crystal clear that without an appropriation authority with an agreed-to budget, I will be unable to carry out my office's primary duty of paying the state's bills and ensuring that we meet our financial obligations as a state. Continuing appropriations and other provisions will allow us to cover some things. We will make the state's debt and pension payments. Retirees will still receive their benefit checks. The temporary assistance for needy families and assistance for the aged, blind, and disabled programs will continue. And we can make most local government payments because they are not tied to an appropriation. But everyone else will see new funding dry up. Nonprofits, social service organizations, and small businesses that currently receive expedited payments because of existing hardships will find that we are unable to continue that practice until a budget is resolved. Medicaid provider payment will stop. State employees will begin missing their paychecks on July 1st, or July 15th, on July 15th, and we will be asking them to come to work with no idea of when we will be able to pay them. And if the budget impasse continues beyond July 1st and into August, school districts will feel the pinch on August 10th when they are scheduled to receive their first state aid payments, their school aid payments. And vendors will see their payments stop, although in a sad testament to the dire financial situation we have in our state, we are already weeks behind in paying them. So it will probably be a little while before they notice that we have not begun to process fiscal 16 payments. Given these realities, I am here to urge the General Assembly to work in good faith with the governor to reach an agreement on a balanced budget and avoid any additional and unnecessary hardship to our state. Every member of the General Assembly has been sent to Springfield by the voters of their district to do a job. And they each take an oath of office to uphold the Illinois Constitution, which requires them to produce a balanced budget for our state. As of today, they have failed to do their job, and therefore their failure now prevents me from doing mine. I come from the private sector, and I have to say I have been stunned by the lack of focus on priorities and the needless theater that I've seen in Springfield. Since January, I've traveled all over the state. I've talked to local leaders, I've talked to social service organizations, and just taxpayers, people, families. And I'll tell you, it is clear everyone understands that we cannot continue to spend more money than we bring in our state. Our practice of passing unbalanced budgets, which has gone on now for more than a decade, has put Illinois in the disastrous budget situation that we are in today. Year after year, we have spent money that we do not have. And our continued fiscal mismanagement has left us with the worst credit rating in the country. So I am here to remind all involved that this is not a game to be won or lost. The rhetoric, the posturing, the decisions made or not made have grave consequences for families, for organizations, and for communities all across our state. We are playing with people's lives when we cannot pay bills that we have promised to pay on time. So just as an example, this past weekend, Catholic Charities has announced it is closing 2 family shelters and 2 child development centers here in Chicago because of uncertainty of state funding. That will mean a loss of temporary housing, food and shelter, counseling and other programs that needy families need to help them get back on their feet. And from my personal experience in the nonprofit community serving developmentally disabled adults, I can tell you that organizations throughout our state are facing similar decisions if our leaders in Springfield cannot find common ground and get a budget passed. When it comes to specific solutions to our budget problems, I strongly believe that any budget agreement must include structural reforms that will make Illinois more competitive. Many will say that new revenue is critical to any responsible spending plan. I believe the best way to raise revenue and ensure a strong future for our state is to bring jobs and economic growth back to Illinois, which will expand our tax base. More businesses, more people working means more tax revenue, and reforms are key to making this happen. So I appreciate that good people can have honest disagreements, but ultimately we need to remember that we all have the same goal in our state, and that is to serve all Illinoisans, to make Illinois a better place where we can live, where we can work, and we can raise our families. And that goal must be at the forefront of all of our decisions as we draw closer to this final budget deadline. Time is of the essence here. The clock is ticking. July 1st is right around the corner. So I encourage our state leaders to work together to reach an agreement and deliver a balanced budget before anyone has any more hardship in our state. In my office, we'll continue to provide whatever resources we can. We will do everything in our power to help make this happen.